All right. Hey Dan, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. I don't think we've met before, so it would be really interesting to just if you could tell me a bit about just who are you?
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the existential question? It's hard to answer and encapsulate in a short little podcast. But I'm Dan Go. I help out high achieving entrepreneurs transform their bodies with ease and minimal stress. And I used to be a former fat guy, and I became obsessed about weight loss and getting in shape. And I eventually made it into a vocation where I'm doing that every single day, and it's one of the most fulfilling things in my life.
Yeah. How did you get started with all of that?
Uh, the very first thought that comes to mind is when I first decided to get in shape. Where I remember back then I was this absolute high school dropout. Not like who you are right now, who's doing podcasts at 16 years old. I was literally living a life that was just committed to pleasure. I was binge drinking every single day. I was partying. I basically was just partying, playing video games, rinse, wash, and repeat. And then it came to a head. I've always been, or I had always been insecure about my body. But what happened was one of my friends asked me to go to a basketball game with him and to play in it. And me being the guy who loves sports and I love playing basketball, I love playing competitive sports, especially. I said yes, let's do it. And it was one of the worst games I've ever played in my entire life. I ended up just huffing up and down, going up and down the court. And then I remember one time I missed a shot, and then in basketball, there's this thing called the fast break. So we have all these other players that are just shifting to the other side, just running as fast as they can. And I was trying to run as fast as I could as well. And then I noticed a little jiggle inside of my chest. And that was kind of like the very first time where I was like, okay, something's like literally like not right with my body. So I ended up excusing myself very quietly from the game, and I ended up just looking at myself in my bathroom mirror and ripping off my shirt and being like, looking at what was in front of me, which was like a set of man boobs. And I was just like, screw this. I'm not going to deal with this ever again for the rest of my life. I'm going to fix this or die trying. And long story short, I'm here right now, and I'm able to tell my story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting. And there's a lot of things I actually want to talk about, lots of different directions which we can take the conversation. Um, Before I get into how did you start the business? Was there any businesses you ran before? I know you target entrepreneurs and you're an entrepreneur yourself at the end of
Yeah.
the day. How did you get started?
Uh, in terms of starting my business, I didn't start a business in the very beginning. I made sure that because I was going from, say, I was actually doing something where I was going from the corporate world onto doing something that 20 years ago was considered to be a side job, which was like personal training. So I didn't start a business right away. I actually decided to work for a gym to cut my teeth, to get some experience before going out and setting off on my own. I do think like one of the best ways to, and one of the longest ways, slowest ways, but also like the fastest ways to get success is to get paid to get experience under some other person, specifically one who's doing the thing that you want to do. And after about 2 years' time, I ended up becoming the top trainer at that gym. I ended up becoming the highest earning trainer at that gym. And I decided at that point in time, I was ready to go off on my own. So I ended up going home to home, taking my weights with me everywhere I went, and training people in their homes. And then I realized that that was definitely not scalable. It was also very time consuming, and it also required a lot of effort. And then I decided to train people in groups by opening up my own space. I actually rented my sister's dance studio to get some space to train some people at the very beginning. And then over the course of time, I just kept on expanding out of the spaces that I was living in until like probably 2018. I had owned the gym, grew it to being one of the best in Ontario, and I sold that. And then that's when I made the jump to helping people that I had a lot of passion for, which is entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and Is your product at the end of the day, is it like a one-to-one consulting? Is it a school community? What does that look like?
It's a hybrid of one-on-one coaching and also group accountability. So we have a lot of like the communication that we do asynchronous with our clients. We give them a private coach. They have someone to talk to. They also have someone that can act as their concierge in a sense, where they will actually go and find the meal preps for them. They will go to the menus of the restaurants that they're going to when they're traveling, and they will find the foods that they're going to be eating and choose it for them. It's very much kind of like a bespoke process that we do for a lot of our clients, and then we amplify that with group coaching community. We do that on Circle, and yeah, when you have like a bunch of people who are just like crushing it in life, losing weight, getting to the best shape of their lives, it's one of the best like combinations that I found.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine it. Like, how did you've grown such a massive following. I think overall you've got over 1 million people, right? In your audience, like 700K on Twitter, 300,000 plus on LinkedIn. How did you get started getting your clients? I know it was originally at the gym, but when you started expanding, was it just fully word of mouth? When did you decide to go for social media, and how did that work for you?
Yeah, when I sold my gym, I wanted to play a bigger game. So when you have a gym or when you have any kind of like local type of business, it is you can make a lot of money off of it. You can influence a good amount of people, but you can only be you can only be confined to the local space that you are a part of. So I wanted to be able to expand and be able to influence a mass amount of people. So back in 2020, I believe it was like March or April, around April, I decided to go fully online. I decided to go full on with social. It started with Twitter, and before that, I got people to coach me to help me kind of like understand the platforms, understand how to do them. Two of them that come to mind are Ed Lattimore and Zuby. Those were like the top two guys that I got coaching with. They showed me the ropes, and yeah, it's like when I started to grow my platform, especially on Twitter, I found that it can be sort of like formulaic and systematic in a way, and I think when you kind of like find that for a certain platform, you can then have the confidence to go over to other platforms, figure out the way that those things work, and then grow your audience that way.
So was it initially Twitter and then later you branched out to other platforms, or yeah.
Yeah, it was initially Twitter. I branched out to Instagram. Then it was LinkedIn, and then it was actually during that time it was growing the newsletter at the same time. And then I think we're at like the final boss, which is YouTube right now. So we grew from like 14K to 150K within the year, and we're still figuring out that platform. Like we still haven't figured things out at all. So we're still figuring that part out. But yeah.
Yeah. How, like, on Twitter, what was there a certain breakthrough, or because that was the first platform, and a lot of the time I feel like it takes quite a few posts before you have one that hits, and it's a matter of volume. I think that goes for almost any platform. Was there something which you found that just hit, and then from there it was a snowball effect?
I think you hit the nail on the head, especially when you're starting out. Everyone thinks it's like that one big home run, and that's gonna set you off for the rest of your life. When the reality is that social media in general, and even videos on YouTube, it's a very short shelf life for people who have very short attention spans as well right now in the modern world. So so when I was kind of like going through all this, building up these platforms, it's just understanding that, hey, guess what, it is a matter of how many at bats you have as opposed to the results that you're getting. Yes, you want to have results, but you also want to make sure you have enough at bats that give you enough reps, that gives you enough practice to understand like what hits and what doesn't on certain platforms. So for me, I think like this girl Chanel, she did a feature on me for, I think, her creator newsletter, and she realized that I posted, and I think I posted around like within a year time frame. It was like 60,000 posts or something like that. That was off replies. That was off of like creating my own posts and like whatever it is. It was a significant amount, a significant number. And all of that was just reps. All of that was just like, okay, so it's just like the more at bats you can give yourself, like the more chances you have at not only maybe attaining clients, but also like reaching bigger audiences, more virality. So yeah, so for me, it's a volume thing. And I have this like heuristic in my life where it's like you can't learn how to work smart until you learn how to work hard. There's the thing that happens before that thing happens. And yeah, if I'm talking to kind of like the random creator and all that kind of stuff, like they're all trying to like hit the home run when the reality is that you actually make progress by hitting a crap ton of base hits and getting enough at bats.
Yeah. And in terms of, because you do have such a multi-channel approach, I'm really curious. Do you have data on like which one brings you the most leads?
Yes, Twitter and email are top two. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like we have to understand that some of these metrics are based off of context as well. So Twitter is like where I spend most of my time, is where I develop my brand and my personality. It's where we have it's where we dedicate a lot of our focus. But even like something like Instagram is not necessarily getting us any kind of profit or any kind of like clientele or whatever it is, but it is more so a fact of like not having that magnifying effect of focus on it as opposed to having a shitty Instagram account or something like that. So it's like it's more so context based than anything else. And I do feel like when you put your magnifying glass onto like certain areas, then you grow those areas. It's just a matter of like where do we want to focus on next.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like on specifically posting, was there anything, what are some tips that you would give? Are there any specific formats? Because you've got some very interesting different formats that I see you doing, like not just normal threads. I see you doing like some screenshots of documents and things like that. And it's really interesting how you go about doing it.
Yeah, I do think that with social media, number one is you have to do two things simultaneously, which is number one is going to be representing and just adding to what the brand represents and stands for, and also going to where the ball is rolling at that very moment in time. So a lot of times when we create content because we're like the artists and we're like, okay, these are the ways that the content should come out. But sometimes when you're seeing a specific piece of content or seeing a specific style that's working, go try it out for yourself because that might actually have like an advantage over say regular posts that you may be doing. So I'm always keeping an eye to kind of like what's working based on kind of like what's coming out, but also like still creating like my own stuff and giving myself permission to go outside of the things that I do and also the things that other people are doing to test stuff out. Because I think that's like where you get a lot of like the major hits because no one's ever done it. And also it's like where you can get like major flops where no one even like pays attention to it whatsoever. So it's it's kind of like looking at what's working and also honing in and trying stuff out for yourself. It's really just like throwing stuff up at the wall most of the times.
Yeah, I feel like I get that feeling a lot. Everyone's got that feeling where they think something's gonna like go do really well and then it
It's
just
so,
flops.
isn't that so funny? It's like, I do have that feeling, even though I've been in this game for almost like 5 years. I had that feeling multiple times where I'm just like, oh, this is like so smart. People are gonna like really like dig this one, and then bloop. Like even today, like I did one like that, and I was like flop, and I was like, okay, cool. Like people just don't like that, or maybe it's the wrong angle, maybe it's the wrong hook. And then there are ones that you just throw in there, and you're just like, okay, well, it's actually the ones that you don't like care about, and you don't like you're just like doing it flippantly that go out and it just got and it just gets like a mass amount of attention. There was one that happened for me. I remember I was in Ireland and I was just like I was like damn, because I'm one of the biggest advice that I would give to people who are starting this game is like have a creation schedule for yourself and like, stick to it no matter what, right? For me, my creation schedule was Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'm always putting out a thread, like always. That's my schedule. So I was in Ireland and I was like, okay, shoot, like this thread has to come out on Saturday. I'm currently in this mastermind right now. And then we had this like little bit of like a time where we can kind of like work on stuff in that mastermind. So I was like, okay, cool. I sit down and I'm just like, okay, and then I find a hook that I've found that's worked for other people. It's like, I'm 45. If you're in your 20s, read this. And flippantly, I'm just like, okay, every single piece of like random advice that comes to my brain of things that I've learned in the past like 44, 45 years of life, I'm throwing in here just off the top of my head. Next thing you know, it's like I put it out there. I actually just like close my laptop, go back to the mastermind, do my thing. The next day, I look at that thread and it was like 100,000 likes, multi-million, whatever, tens of millions of impressions, and I didn't even care about it. I actually looked at it the next day. I'm like, whoa, what the heck happened here? And then, I turned that into a YouTube video. It became like my highest viewed YouTube video, and put it all into like various types of platforms. And really, it's kind of like this whole thing where it's like if you're kind of like in the flow of creating, and you really don't care about what a creation does and what the outcome is, then you are actually put in a place where you're in better position to create a great piece of content that people can resonate with. And I think like the more that you kind of like try to create to engender an outcome for yourself, whether it be like more likes, virality, or whatever, the more that you kind of like push that stuff away. It's kind of like dating women as well. It's like, hey, the more I'm like really wanting this, the more I'm kind of pushing it away, and the more I kind of like don't give a whatever, and I'm on my own purpose and I'm still doing my thing. Like the more that you attract the thing that you actually want. So yeah, for me it was very much kind of like I didn't really care about it. I thought maybe it could do good, but I didn't have any kind of like attachment to what the result was. And then it turned out to be one of my best threads that I've ever put out there, or actually my most one of my most viewed threads I've ever put out there. Actually, the most viewed thread.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, in terms of you've got like all these different platforms,
Yeah.
how do you go about? Because I know you said your most viral thread, you then turn it into a YouTube video. Is there any other content repurposing strategies you're using?
Well, I like to use a platform as a hub to test ideas. So one of the hubs that I have is Twitter. If something like just pops off on Twitter, there's a very good chance that it pops off, say, on LinkedIn and Instagram. And also, understand that there are certain platforms that have similarities to them. Like I really do think that LinkedIn and Instagram are very similar in the ways in which you can create content and engender audience and attract audience. It's a little bit different, but again, it's also the same. So I think you can go cross-platform in that way without kind of being redundant by just reposting the stuff that you have on LinkedIn over to Instagram, because I do feel like the vibe is still kind of like somewhat similar. But in general, like if I were to give anyone any advice, cross-platform wise or not, it would be do not go cross-platform until you are legitimately somewhat of a master at the platform that you're currently at. I've made the mistake before, and lots of people have as well, where it's like attention is only as powerful as the thing that you focus on. So a lot of people are like, okay, cool, I got like LinkedIn, growing and whatever. It's like, oh yeah, let's like move over to Instagram. It's like, well, what if you actually like put that power into creating like really awesome, awesome, awesome LinkedIn stuff, even better than what you're doing right now, and really focusing in your attention on that particular platform. You'll probably get it to a frequency, or to you probably amplify your following much better than if you tried to go cross-platform in the first place. But then there is like this kind of like I guess you could say a glass ceiling as well. So there is nuance to this. So it's like at some point in time, whatever you're talking about is going to have you're going to reach a total area market, or your TAM, right? Uh, Most people think that they reach it far earlier than they really do. But in general, it's like if you feel like you've exhausted like this particular platform, then that's when you kind of hop onto the platform and master another one. So, yeah, that's kind of like my philosophy on cross platforms. But again, it's like, everyone has a different philosophy about it. So,
Yeah, that makes total sense. And curious, what was 20% on a high level that got you the 80% of the results? Maybe a way of thinking or a specific strategy.
yeah. Okay, so when we're talking about results, are we talking about like audience building, business? What are we talking about?
I'd say like the overall business, just bring
Yeah.
it to a point where you're at now.
Yeah. So the best formula for me is a three step equation, which is what is the thing that you're showing up to every single day at whatever time consistently that you're doing? And what is the thing that you're showing up to regardless of how you feel? For me, that was creating content at 8 a.m. every single day and doing that for like 2 to 3 years. And for a lot of people, they can't stomach that shit. So they'd rather like hire someone else out and do this for them. But the reality is that I needed to go in and do that because I needed to kind of get a feel for what this is supposed to be. The next one is going to be, okay, well, like make sure you are publishing on a consistent basis. And the only thing like with social media that you have to understand is that it's all encompassing, it's 24/7. So you have to find a way to get your content out there on a very consistent basis, preferably daily. If it's like one of these shorter platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, if it's like a longer platform, which is like, say, YouTube or podcasting, then obviously once a week is a great cadence, but you have to find that cadence and you have to stick to it. Then the final part is going to be improvement. So you have to look for ways to improve your content. And you also have to track kind of like how your you have to track your success metrics that you would consider to be valid to you for the thing that you're trying to build. In the beginning, it's going to be audience building, it's going to be engagement, all those things, and then eventually it's going to be, okay, so cool, how do we turn these people into newsletter subscribers or coaching clients or whatever it is. But also it's looking for ways to improve your content, because guess what, if you're not trying to improve your content, what's going to happen is that people are very fickle and they'll go on to the next person. So it's basically like show up every single day to the thing that you're trying to create. It's do the work, that you have to publish. You have to force yourself to publish, whether it's shit or not. And then the last one is just looking for ways to improve, whether that be through the content you're creating, whether that be through distribution or getting that content out to like more people, whether that be through like monetization or whatever. But there are so many ways to like go about it. You pick one variable, you focus on it, you move on to the next. And I think like when people put their focus in on that, as opposed to kind of like wildly putting their attention to like this, that, and the other, I think that's like a much better strategy. And also it gives you a little bit more peace of mind as well.
Do you still only write your posts, or do you have a team doing it for you or helping you
Yeah.
with it?
Yeah, think about it from like a hub and the spoke model. So I'm the hub where I create the content on I actually create the content on Twitter, and I see kind of like how people are reacting to it, and eventually if they like it, then I turn that content into LinkedIn content, and then that spreads it all around to say actually it spreads it to Instagram, and if it's really good, then a thread can turn into like a YouTube video or a YouTube script. So I kind of like try to take one piece of content that I have, or maybe a couple pieces of content. I see how the audience reacts to it, and then if they react to it in a really good way, if it has like some form of virality, then I'll like go deeper into those particular topics, and I'll like extrapolate them on my newsletter and also on YouTube. But there is like this hub and spoke model where it all starts from like one piece of content and it spreads out. And then for me, that's always starting with like Twitter and LinkedIn, and then that spreads out to all the other platforms.
Interesting. I've heard actually a few people, they sort of have Twitter as the nucleus, and then whatever hits on there, because you can just pump out so much volume on there, and then from there you just repurpose the best stuff. Do you,
Yeah.
you've got like so much going on. I was just curious, use any specific tools to manage the whole thing or to help you with the systems?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're running somewhat of a complex business right now. So I mean, like to schedule posts out, like we do it through Hyperi and Taplio. For LinkedIn posts, it's Taplio. For Instagram or for Twitter posts, it's going to be Hyperi. For our CRM, we're going high level, or we have high level. For payroll management, I think we have like Deal. Yeah, I mean, like Zapier for all the little automations that there's a whole bunch of like systems that we have inside of our business.
Yeah, yeah. And uh, like throughout your whole business journey as a whole, is there any moment where you were like the happiest, maybe like a big milestone or on those lines?
Hmm. See, the funny thing is, and this is maybe like a fault of mine as well, which is when I hit certain milestones, I just feel relief more so than I feel like any kind of reward mechanism. It's like It's more so like, cool, we hit it. All right, on to the next. It's the way that I've kind of operated my life. And I do think that I should kind of like give myself like little rewards for all these little things that we hit. So maybe something, a little personal thing I have to work on. But for me, it's like all these outcomes, like it really doesn't matter to me. I love the fact that there are millions of people out there that are following me, listening to what I say, and digging the stuff that I'm creating. But at the same time, it's like the creation process and the journey of like actually putting out all this stuff, and the journey of like even fixing the constraints of my business and all that. Even though they may be somewhat stressful sometimes and overwhelming, but that's the game. That's actually a game that I like playing, and I am more in love with the game as opposed to these like things where it's like people, even my wife, she's like, why aren't you like smiling when these things happen or whatever? And I'm just like, babe, I'm on to the next already. I've been on to the next, and yeah, it's maybe a fault of mine, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, if you love the game, then these outcomes kind of like when they happen, you're like, cool. All right, keep on growing, keep on improving.
Feel like I always think of business. I mean, I used to be similar to the position that you were talking about earlier. Just sort of playing video games, not really, no real ambition. And I think I see a lot of people around me in that sort of situation. Realize like business is just it's just probably the ultimate form of a game in today's society.
Yeah,
It's no limit really.
yeah, everything's a game.
It's a game.
Yeah, it's the same principles every single time. But yeah, it's once you, I think like having kind of like that video game mentality is great because it's so real to life. It's like you gain experience, you fight the bosses, which are like the biggest obstacles holding you back. You get over those, then you have like new bigger bosses, and like you keep on beating these guys until you gain more experience, you gain mastery over that game, and then once you master that game, then you move on to the next. It's a beautiful cycle. I love it.
Exactly, yeah. And one thing that you could tell yourself when you started out, what would it be?
The funny thing is like I'd be like, I'd just tell him exactly what he told himself because here I am. It's like, but if I were to go back, because this is something that I had been thinking about during the times that I had achieved these things that I thought were seemingly impossible, where you're limited by the ceilings you place on your mind. So I wish that I could just go back and be like, think bigger, think bigger, think bigger. Every single thing that you've gotten in your life has been a result of like a thought and a belief that you had in the first place. And imagine if you put a bigger thought and a bigger belief in there and nurtured that, watered it, grew it. And that's the thing. It's like I don't know where you're at right now. And whoever's watching this, I don't know exactly where you're at, but let's just say like when I thought like 100,000 was a year was like the thing, and then I got it, I realized, oh shoot, I should have been thinking bigger than that. Because anything that you attach your mind to is always going to be attainable. Like if you actually believe that you can do it and you see other people doing it. So it's kind of like, oh shoot, I should have like went for, some like the bigger step because you were literally only confined to the limits that you set on your mind.
I completely agree. And speaking of like limits and goals, what's your goal over the next 5 years? Like what do you want to
Yeah.
achieve?
Just I mean like the ultimate goal is my wife, my kids and myself, we are supported. We have food on the table, we have a roof over our heads, we love each other as a family. And then that's just the ultimate goal. In terms of like a specific kind of like business goals or stuff of that nature, I'm just I like to keep those kind of like to myself. I think like the more that you express these things out to the universe, like the more power you take away from them. But the ultimate one, and one that I feel is like the most close to me, and I'm always working towards every single day, is the one I just told you, which is family, having our basic needs met, being comfortable in terms of like getting those basic needs supported, and having a loving household. Those are having good health and a loving household. Those are like the best things.
I think that thing about like sharing the goals, almost I heard this a while ago, but if you it's almost like when you share your goals with someone, you're like, oh, happen, or I've got this potential client, already get the dopamine from that goal.
Yeah, and you have to be careful who you're telling the goal to. I mean, if you're telling the goal of, let's just say, like, let's just say the goal is like to make 100K or something like that, and you're telling someone who's like making 50K, then you're probably telling the wrong person. If you are to tell your goal to someone, then you want to tell your goal to someone that may actually have a hand in helping you achieve it. That's probably the only exception that I would make. But then, yes, if you tell like this overreaching goal and like this thing that some other people have not accomplished in their lives, they can be entirely supportive of it, but they will also at the same time not necessarily understand you, right? And they will not understand why you want to achieve this. They will actually, a lot of people take it as an affront to their lack of goals and their lack of drive in their life. So I'm very careful with the people at least who I express these things to, and everyone should, because you just don't want to flippantly tell these important things out to just like anyone. You want to make sure that you hold them in high regard.
And in terms of to like the specific business side, all organic, the customers, or are there other ways you guys acquire them?
Yeah, all organic right now. Yeah,
Great. And is
yeah.
there, I know I mentioned which platform brings you the most customers. Is there one where it's quality? Because I know from my experience at least, on LinkedIn, I feel like it's at least they tend to be able to afford high ticket products. They tend to be able to committed and in better positions overall.
Yeah. I'll throw a different perception on that, which is the perception that we bring to a platform is going to be the reality we bring to a platform. So so yes, I know it's like, okay, is there any kind of like platform that's better or worse or whatever? Really it goes back down to like the one that you master is the one that's going to give you the most fruit. The one that you water is going to be the one that gives you the most fruit. So with you, it's like LinkedIn is that place at this very moment. I'm pretty sure if you had to put your focus, say on like another platform, let's just say LinkedIn said like, screw you, like, we're, go away, suspend you, whatever. I'm pretty sure if you put like the same principles towards say another platform, then you would actually get the same results, maybe, if as good, if not better. It's just like a matter of focus, a matter of figuring out like how that platform works. And I'm always like, especially with this content stuff and just in life in general, it's like, are we a mirror person or are we a window person? So the let's just say content wise, if a window person is looking at the algorithm and looking at platforms and blah 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 blah, and like looking at these external sources, like they're looking out at the window of like the things that may hold them back, as opposed to the mirror person, whereas like, okay, well, cool, like how come I'm getting all these like clients from say like Instagram or LinkedIn? How come I'm not getting any from Instagram? It has to be something I'm doing. So that's the mirror principle, right? So it's like, so I always think like different platforms have like different ways of kind of like working them. It's not necessarily one is more fruitful than the other. It's more so like the one that you focus on the most and master and give time to is going to be the one that bears the most fruit for you.
Yeah, that's a completely valid and understandable point of view. For just as a last question, do you have a quote that stuck with you, or one quote that you'd like to share?
A quote that I would love to share. If I just had something on the billboard for anyone to do anything with their lives is literally just, I would just put two things like just show up. I mean, it's so easy nowadays. It is so easy. I'm talking about this from like being 40 years old, 44 years old, 45, whatever. I'm turning 45. And I've been there when the internet wasn't here. And I've been around where like kids played on the street, without having to like worry about stuff. I've seen some shit. Had people die in my life, all that kind of stuff. And I've gone through kind of like these decades of generations, and I've just seen like, well, crap. Like it just gets easier over the course of time for anyone to succeed. The only thing that they have to do is actually show up, take action. Because if they don't do that, you can't create momentum. If you don't show up, if you don't be consistent at the thing that you're trying to get better at, whether it be the gym, writing, content, whatever it is, then you're never going to get better. And I think like the one thing that's missing from a lot of like people, especially who are like apathetic with their own results, is they lack just the commitment to just showing up. So I would just say like show up, do that every single day. That's your 80 to 90% right there. And then publish whatever it is and just like keep on showing up every single day. Don't give yourself any excuses. And then once you start doing that, your automatic success mechanism in your mind is going to want more and it's going to want to improve. So yeah, that's the only thing I would say to people. Show up.
There's so many opportunities now that the way to position yourself to be lucky is just showing up, like you said, and doing that. So many opportunities now. There's like a flow of things that will come your way just by posting content out there, network, referrals, clients, that.
Yeah. It's so easy right now than it was when I was like 20 years old. The only thing that people have to get over is their sense of victimhood mentality, their excuses about why they can't do what they want to do, and uh, and yeah, just making sure that they're taking action towards the things that they want. So yeah,
100%. Well, it's been great talking to you.
yeah.
So where can people find you if they want more?
Just go to dango.co or search Dango on Google. You can find all sorts of links there. And yeah, thanks for having me on, Paolo. I really appreciate it.
Well, it was great to talk to you.
Yeah. See ya.